What's up? What's up? What's up? We're back at the 2 o'clock guard, right on the dot guard. Get ready if you're not guard. How you doing today, Gavin?
Doing great, guys. Welcome back to the show. We have an awesome one planned for you guys today. Going to start off by talking a little bit more about the Elon Musk Twitter takeover debacle, which might finally be coming to an end, shockingly enough. So we're excited to discuss that. We've been on that beat for the last week or so now. So again, we might be finally at the conclusion of Elon Musk's Twitter takeover, which is wild. But super excited to break that down. Plus, later in the show, we have good friend of the show, Tyrel Ventura, joining us once again on the Vanguard. We're going to be talking about the thousands of JFK assassination files, which have finally been released by the U.S. National Archives. We're going to be joined by Tyrel, who's a big JFK enthusiast and someone that's really in deep on that case, to discuss the findings, anything that Tyrel thinks is of note, and ultimately what we still have yet to find out related to the JFK assassination, things we might still not know about. So super excited for that too. Always love chatting with our good friend Tyrel. But yeah, what's up, bro?
Well, as I think you might have forgotten, at the beginning and end of every episode, we have to do a massive shout out to our Patreon supporters, the lovely people of Patreon that keep the lights on here at the Casa del Vanguard, keep us rocking and rolling, keeping us coming at you at a steady pace here. Shout out to all of you, lovely comrades, Vanguardians, and super Vanguardians. Of course, you're all comrades to us. Just hit that like and subscribe button, notification bell. You know the drill. Links in the description.
Absolutely. Huge shout out to the patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. Hit up that link in the description if you enjoy our show and want to help us out, keep us sustainable. Even just $5 a month goes a long way. But yeah, as Zach said, we wouldn't be able to do the show without the support of our patron community, which is why we like to start and end all of our shows with a big shout out. So thank you guys so much. And as we've said, the links in the description, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. It's always going to be found in the description of all of our content. So hit it up if you're a Vanguard. We'd really appreciate it. But yeah, do you want to just dive right into this Elon Musk story, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, we've chronicled this for a while. People in the chat have pointed this out. Like, he basically, his whole arc at Twitter was him like brashly coming in here to be like this guy that, I'll buy Twitter, and like doing all these very public negotiations. Last minute, he tries to back out of it because he's offered to buy Twitter at well above its actual value, like its real valuation, like the amount of money that it generates. It's valued way above that. He said, okay, I'm the richest man in the world. I'll do whatever I want. Has a pretty sizable bank loan that he has to make payments on, right? We've also documented the financial struggle since he imposed his version of free speech, which is not free speech policy at all. Advertisers were pulled, of their own, decision making. They just said, hey, we don't want to advertise on this platform if this is how you're going to behave. Twitter's been auctioning off furniture to pay its rent at its headquarters. A surefire sign of success. That's exactly what your shareholders want to be seeing after you've taken on your role as CEO and owner of one of the most consequential platforms on earth, right? So we've documented all of that. We even documented his pump fake and how he didn't even really want to buy Twitter, but he had offered such a dramatic amount of money that all the people that own Twitter were like, we will sue you to make you buy us for this amount of money. So he did, in fact, purchase it for $44 billion. And now it looks like it's all going to be for naught. Just a massive stain on his record, a huge embarrassment. Not only is he fumbling and fucking up every single opportunity at Twitter, but Tesla is also crumbling every single day. The stock valuation goes lower. It's really at a steady decline. His net worth is rapidly eroding, which is hilarious and not worth shedding a tear for, but just another reason to gloat at the hubris of this guy and his utter failure.
Yeah, I want. Oh, yeah. What were you gonna say, Zach?
You were muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was pulling this up. Zach just referenced the Tesla stock, which is eating shit right now. And as Lance over at the Surfs point out, Twitter is real life. So as Zach said, massive embarrassment, massive stain on Musk's record. And let's talk about what happened. So recently, as we've covered on the show, Elon Musk has just gone on a total banning spree, a totally unhinged and censorious spree of silencing his critics, and then oftentimes 24, 48 hours later deciding to undo those bans. All right, whatever, I'll allow him back on. But it's created a very erratic environment on the platform where seemingly there is no terms of service, there are no guidelines. It's just kind of become whatever the hell Elon Musk is thinking. Whoever pisses him off gets banned, with no real consistency or principle applied. Again, no seemingly consistent terms of service. And Elon Musk seems to have taken some of the criticism to heart, because it's not just people like us on the left that have been calling him out. It's also some of the people on the right that bought into his vision of Twitter in the first place and really hoped he would be the savior of free speech that he sold himself as. And again, a lot of people on the right wing, a lot of allies of Elon Musk, everyone from Barry Weiss to the Quartering on Twitter, have pointed this out, which led to Elon Musk posting this last night. Going forward, there will be a vote for major policy changes. My apologies won't happen again. So, Elon Musk, I guess, taking a little bit of self-reflection here, saying, all right, clearly I've been governing a little bit erratically. Clearly I've made some mistakes. And, coming forward with an apology saying that it's not going to happen again. Going forward, there will be a vote for major policy changes. And speaking of votes on major policy changes, he followed this tweet up with something that really shocked me. He actually posted a Twitter poll asking the people of Twitter, should I step down as head of Twitter? I will abide by the results of this poll. And of course, I voted yes, as did 57.5% of respondents. That's a pretty resounding result, over about 15% exactly, actually, winning over the no answer. So the majority of people which saw this poll said, all right, it's time to wrap it up, dog. Get the fuck out of here. This is not going well. And it'll be interesting to see if Elon Musk actually does abide by these results. I imagine he will. I mean, I don't really think he would have posted something this dramatic if he wasn't planning on respecting the results of this poll. It'll be pretty insane if he doesn't. But he hasn't tweeted now in 18 hours. His last tweet was this hilariously ironic banger: those who want power are the ones who least deserve it. To which everyone replied, yeah, no shit. You've made that very clear, Elon Musk.
Imagine having such little self-awareness that you could actually post something like this and not realize that you are talking about yourself. Like, you have to be so removed from any kind of reality. This man is in such a bubble. It's insane. And, to your point about how he might be actually like evolving in some capacity, saying that, oh, my apologies, moving forward, we're going to make a majority decision making the policy. Like, I already heard that song and dance from him before. Like, oh, I remember when he first took over Twitter, and that's what he said, right? Was, oh, we're going to have a democratic, panel of people from all parties that are going to make these, common sense decisions. We always love that. It's like very Andrew Yang. It's like, oh, we're just going to find the common sense majority in the middle, right? It's like, that doesn't fucking exist, asshole. Everybody is their own person that has their own ideas. There's no such thing as like a fucking like true middle. If you're just getting granular about it, right? Anyway, like, people have a sense of like right and wrong, and you can, build things off that. But anytime you get esoteric, like, everybody's going to think differently about it anyway. So he doesn't go ahead and do that. This just adds to the litany. The other thing that we've correctly always hammered Elon on here at the show, there was never a second at the Vanguard where we ever told you guys, hey, this billionaire is going to do a good job, guys. He's out here fighting for me, okay? He's fighting for you. This billionaire, he cares about our free speech, okay? Like, a lot of people who made absolute fucking fools about them and maybe published the Twitter files again. Just like, it's like that meme. Matt Taibbi right now is like that meme of the dog in the house on fire where it's like, I'm fine, everything's fine. Like, he just posted another fucking one of the Twitter files. Like, this guy hasn't eroded every single fucking criticism that he was making of the fucking previous overlords over at Twitter. Just completely fucking embarrassing to not have the fucking balls to turn around and call this out because you want to get another fucking Twitter file story. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. This guy's dramatically unpopular, but he's also a known liar. He's always been a liar. Don't need to beat that dead horse again, other than the fact that I wouldn't be shocked if he's lying again here. This man might have actually been delusional enough, Gavin, that he really did believe it was 10% booze, 90% cheers, right? And he was like, oh, it's just the loudest people on Twitter that are trying to make me feel bad. I still have my army of supporters, right? Let's just let the real people of Twitter. It's also massively skewed because it's gonna, if he publishes the poll, it'll be, I mean, it'll probably get taken over by the rest of Twitter anyway, but it would skew towards his like 120 some odd million followers, which are going to by and large be favorable to him. So if anything, if this were like an authentic poll of the user base of Twitter, it might even be more of a margin of people saying that he should get the fuck out. So how delusional, how fucking stupid and just bad at business and calculation and PR do you have to be to come out here and humiliate yourself again after it's been made so clear that you are like the least, like you are the main character of Twitter right now, and you're like the antagonist. Like everybody does not like you. They want you to go away. You're the richest man in the world. You actually have taken the heat off Jeffrey Bezos for a while, in a way that I'd like us to pivot back to, because I do think that by and large Bezos does more real-time harm. But Elon Musk is just such an unlikable prick, and he's such a crybaby. Like he brought his mommy to like stand up for him the other day because he was like, everybody's being mean to me, and maybe they won't be mean to me if I have my mom here. Are you fucking kidding me? You are a fucking joke. You're an 8-year-old in a man's body, and they gave you like $100 billion, more than that. Jesus fucking Christ. But anyway, I'm on a little bit of a hill here, but I wouldn't be shocked if this man further humiliated himself by just extending for as long as possible the hunt for a new CEO at Twitter, saying like, oh, we're working as hard as we can. I'm just acting CEO right now. We're looking for somebody new, and then really trying to like save his public image. And then still, I think he really wants to just be beloved by the people of Twitter, even though that will never happen. Gavin and I will die before we ever allow that to happen. I'm kidding, of course, but
Yeah, and shout out to you, Bookworm Skates. Thanks so much for the first super chat of the live stream. Really appreciate that. $4.99. Did you also see the story today about not linking any social accounts from the Twitter support account? Dumpster fire. Yes, and this was another one of the missteps that caused Elon Musk to put out that apology in the first place, and they got him called out by even some of his allies on the right. Basically, a new Twitter policy went into effect where it was like, you can't link to other social medias, although some you can. Like, you could still link to TikTok or Rumble, YouTube, and a few others, but not Instagram, Facebook, Mastodon, and and several others. So it was this really confusing policy. And a lot of people, again, even on the right wing, were like, dude, this makes no sense. The links to my other social medias are in my bio. They're in my link tree. This is a common function of a social media, linking to your various other platforms. You can't just put into effect this account, which would result in the banning of literally millions and millions of accounts who aren't doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything nefarious. They're not just trying to promote their shit by using Twitter, but it just so happens that it's in their bio or something like that. So this was another one of the just atrocious decisions that led to Elon Musk putting out that apology and then putting out this poll asking, should I step down? Did you see that, Zach?
I did see a little bit about that, but I don't know. That's the one thing about Twitter is I haven't been on it like as much. So the intricacies of the changes I haven't like personally experienced as much. But I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he would do something like that, given the fact that TikTok and YouTube actually drive users to Twitter, right? They actively like make it a better platform, like the clips and stuff and the video content, stuff that's easily digestible on the platform. Whereas something like Facebook and Instagram, it's going to take clicks away, or Mastodon's going to take clicks away. So it just seems like nefariousness. But I mean, I don't know. It just seems like he's desperately trying to fucking figure out something that's going to save the day, but it's all just marginal bullshit at this point. If he's a part of and attached to Twitter, it's going to keep failing.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Bookworm Skates. Really appreciate that super chat. And yeah, so let's look at some of the pretty funny responses that Elon Musk got to this Twitter poll, creating a bit of a power vacuum that multiple other peoples are trying to, get in on. Some other people that are like Elon Musk fans are trying to become the new CEO now. They're like, I'll do it. I'll do it. So here's an example of that. Do you know who the Quartering is, Zach?
Yeah, he's like a big dude, bro, like red pill, like fucking douchebag, right?
Pretty much. He's one of those guys that complains a lot about like woke media on YouTube and, Disney's gone woke and Hollywood is woke and video games are woke, all that kind of stuff. And shout out to you, comrade, by the way, for the $5. I voted no on the poll. I want to continue seeing Elon failing as the CEO of Twitter. Yeah, I thought about that as well, comrade. I was like, this has been entertaining as hell. This has definitely been a huge mask off moment for Elon Musk. But at the same time, I'm like, I think we get the point. Like, all right, we get it. He's incompetent. He's running this platform into the ground. I don't know how much another couple weeks or months of this going on would add to that. But I certainly understand where you're coming from, and it has been quite entertaining, comrade.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, Twitter's engagement has probably been higher than it's been in a long time because of all this, right? People love to watch a fireworks show. People love to watch a disaster, right? Just like the immolation of a man who was so beloved, and also a platform that was so beloved. And now it's just interesting to watch. It's compelling news, right? So people are lurking. But in the long run, I want Twitter to stick around, and this dude's like, I've never been, Gavin and I, disagreed on this slightly. Gavin, I think I don't. At one point, you were concerned Twitter was going to go down. This is the closest I've ever been to thinking like, hey, Twitter could actually get fucked, because if he doesn't relinquish control and they do get that bank loan takeover, I don't know what the fuck happens. The shareholders could like force Elon out and stuff. Like, Twitter's probably not going to disappear as a platform, but I don't want it to start getting laggy and on horse shit or whatnot. It is a big backbone of the kind of work we do here at Gavin. So I'm playing the long game selfishly here and saying that the short term media mayhem not worth the longevity of the fruits that Twitter will bear for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, comrade. And that's a good point you made. Before we get to this comment from the quartering, I did want to throw this up here again because you reminded me of it, Zach. So again, this poll goes out. Should I step down as head of Twitter? And this was funny from Shu. She says, "Give it to me, Elon. I'm very normal and can be trusted." But anyway, something I thought was worth highlighting was a tweet here. And I don't know about the validity of this, but this might have something to do with the reason why Elon is now all of a sudden had a change of heart and decided that it's no longer in the best interest of the company for him to remain the CEO. Here's a tweet that says, "Just overheard Elon Musk discussing investment opportunities from the Emir of Qatar and other Saudi royals for his businesses, specifically Twitter. But from their body language and diplomatic response, it didn't seem very positive. They asked him to find a suitable CEO." Again, I cannot confirm the validity of this, but we know that Elon Musk was at the World Cup and Qatar yesterday. And according to this source, he was chatting with some various Saudi royals and people from Qatar about investment opportunities. And according to their body language and response, they weren't impressed by the direction he was taking the company. They weren't impressed by the way it was being handled. And that makes total sense. I mean, if you're a potential investor for a company like Twitter and you take a look at the fucking shit show that's unfolding on a daily basis over there, yeah, you're probably not going to want to invest in that. And what this ultimately comes down to for Musk is that he needs this company to be profitable. He at least needs to salvage some of the billions and billions of dollars that he spent on it. And if his behavior and his status as leader of the company is preventing that money from coming in, eventually that is going to triumph over his pettiness, his thin-skinned lack of principles, etc. And the money's going to make the decision. So do you think there's any validity to this, Zach?
I mean, I did see the photograph of him drinking wine in the stadium at Qatar, and it did look like there was maybe a Saudi royal in the background, and then like Jared Kushner was standing there. We looked at that actually, or like a similar picture yesterday when you were like, "Oh, it reminds me of Gladiator," right? So I mean, I'm sure that they were talking about business, and I'm sure that if the Saudi royals are invested, and I believe they are, in Twitter or in its success, then you can bet your ass that they're pissed off about this. And I just want to take a second and shout out Aussie Oracle in the chat, who's wondering what evidence we have that he's running Twitter into the ground. If you acknowledge that the platform is at an all-time high with engagement, Twitter is tied to Tesla, which was already in decline. Now, that's true that Tesla was already in decline, but the evidence that I have that he's running Twitter into the ground is that advertisers are fleeing like rats from a ship, that he can't pay his fucking rent for the Twitter campus, the fact that he over-leveraged himself, and now he has to take a bank loan that he can't possibly repay. So the thing about Twitter is that even though it has had seriously high engagement, they've always struggled. Similarly to how Facebook struggled for a long time, Twitter struggled with how to generate revenue, right? So they were this hugely popular fucking website, but just because you can get more engagement on your website to use it, if it's a free platform, you're not necessarily making more money, especially if you have to go to these shoddier advertisers, and you can't get advertisements from the big players, the heavy hitters that are going to pay you a shit ton of money to buy ad space on your platform. So that's a big problem. The other thing is the massive amounts of staff layoffs, things like that, which are going to, in the long term, likely see an impact on the quality of the product if they don't make adjustments. But also just the public perception of the company right now is in the absolute toilet. That's horrible for investors. That's also horrible for advertisers to decide to come out. And that is the only way that Twitter makes their fucking money, guys. They have a lot of overhead. And now with the fact that Elon has to pay off this bank loan, he needs to generate more and more real cash over time, and he's not doing that. He's actually probably generating less capital now than when he took it over by a wide margin. So just because people are coming to watch the building burn doesn't mean that buying that building is a good investment. Just because you're like, wow, there's a lot of traffic around here. You know what I mean? Like that traffic is going to disappear the second that this shit starts to go under even further, right? And once the actual a spectacle of this wears off, Elon and the Twitter executives are still going to have to deal with how the fuck they are going to turn this platform into a way more profitable platform than it was probably ever going to be if they didn't buy it. I mean, this was a long-term Silicon Valley problem, is that like none of these fucking super inflated companies were really making the kind of money that their valuation proclaimed. It was all like theoretical, right? Anyway.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point, Zach. 1 sec, I'm pulling this up. Yeah. So as I mentioned, Elon Musk suggesting that he may no longer be the CEO of Twitter for much longer has led to a couple notable personalities, mostly on the right, trying to be like, hey, maybe I should do it. Maybe you should pick me to do this. One such person is actually Lex Fridman. He's not a bad podcaster. I definitely don't agree with all the guy's opinions, but I think he's a good interviewer. I think for the most part, he's a good faith actor. Again, despite my massive disagreements with the guy. But he says, fun suggestion. Yeah, what a fun suggestion. Give me control of Twitter. Isn't that fun? Let me run Twitter for a bit. No salary, all in. Focus on great engineering and increasing the amount of love in the world. Just offering my help in the unlikely case it's useful. So here's one person trying to get in on this, being like, hey, how about me? To which Elon Musk responded hilariously, you must like pain a lot. One catch, you have to invest your life savings in Twitter, and it has been in the fast lane to bankruptcy since May. Still want the job? So going back to Aussie Oracle's question about Twitter being run into the ground, here's Elon Musk basically admitting that it's being run into the ground. Now, he's probably not going to take responsibility for that, but he's saying it's been in the fast lane to bankruptcy since May. Well, apparently you taking over has not been able to reverse that course or get it out of that fast lane, because seemingly everything has only gotten worse since you took over, Elon. But again, I found that to be pretty funny. What do you think about the idea of Lex Fridman becoming the new head of Twitter, and what do you think about Elon's pretty interesting response? He's clearly a little bit in his feelings.
Okay, yeah. So I have so much to say about this. One, I like listening to Lex Fridman interview people occasionally. I think he has a good temperament for it. I think that he is really open and charitable to his guests, and he does a good job at that. But I fucking hate the line of thinking from the Silicon Valley guys or in his case, he's on the East Coast. He's an MIT guy, and he's way fucking smarter than I'll ever be, right? If fucking we need to get to Mars or something, Lex is the guy to hire. If you need somebody to fuck off and make you a dirty martini, I'm the guy to hire, right? But this shit right here fries my fucking cheese a little bit, to use a Midwestern expression, right? Like this guy, let's just focus on great engineering and increasing the amount of love in the world. Like, are you dumb as rocks, or are you trying to lie to people and cover something up? Like, do you genuinely believe that people with the Saudi investments and all the most bloodthirsty venture capitalists in this country, they're going to let you run the fucking Twitter off of love and great engineering and all that fucking like dog shit neoliberalism? Essentially, it's like, oh, we're just going to get all these really passionate, exciting people with all these ideas in there, and we're going to have this like great moment of synergy, and it's going to be interconnected linkativity, and we're all going to shine and radiate. And like, this is the kind of shit that people who want you to like really buy into like corporate America will kind of like tell you all this shit, but it's all a horseshit lie. They'll fire you at the second that it's politically or financially convenient for them. They'll expeditiously do anything at the whim of of the company and the bottom line. They're not interested in any of that. So for this guy to be as smart as I know he is and still have this delusional understanding of the world, I don't know how you square that circle. How are you so smart and so dumb at the same time that you just cannot understand this? Like, you cannot think that that would ever be a potential reality, right? You can never, like, I mean, maybe because he comes from academia, he has like a really jaded understanding of how the fuck the business world works, but that's just never going to be a reality. So moving on to roasting Elon. He says, you must like pain a lot. LOL, throwing a little pity party for himself. One catch, you have to invest your life savings. You don't have a life savings, Elon. You're a billionaire. And if you went bankrupt, you would still be a billionaire. So fuck you. And it has been in the fast lane to bankruptcy since May. Still want the job. Here is the crazy cell phone about this. This guy's, you could not write a better cell phone. Gavin, will you please pull up this tab here for a moment? Let's go to the acquisition of Twitter. So he said it's been on the fast track to failure since May. Business magnate Elon Musk initiated the acquisition of social media company Twitter on April 14th, 2022. It ended in October 27. He began taking his Twitter. So this is the exact timeline that he has been involved in the company. He said it's been on the fast track to bankruptcy since I got involved. The exact period of time I've been involved, I'm blaming the company for just tanking. Are you fucking kidding me? And then you want me to throw a pity party for you? You set $44 billion on fire and only got the world to hate you and this platform that wants to get rid of you. And they will too, dude. They will get rid of him. Again, like I said, it's too big of a fucking piece of the pie for them to let even the formerly richest guy in the world destroy it. Yeah, I even saw a crazy Reddit thread. I don't know if there's any validity to this, that Elon Musk was considering having Jared Kushner be acting CEO at some point. If that happens, that's the only way that you could make this situation even worse, potentially.
Yeah, imagine Ye's response if they made Jared Kushner the head of Twitter. He'd be like, this confirms everything I've been saying. The Jews control the media. Confirmed. But yeah, before we move on, I wanted to throw a couple more tweets on screen. Again, I referenced the quartering. He was usually in Elon Musk's corner, but has offered a few tepid criticisms of him and some of the policies and decisions that has been enacted under Elon Musk's rule. So Elon says, as the saying goes, be careful what you wish, you might get it, which is kind of cryptic. And a lot of people, were trying to figure out what he meant by that. Again, suggesting he's going to step down, but almost threatening to appoint someone even worse, potentially. You just careful what you wish. Like you think I'm bad? Wait till you see who the fuck I appoint in my absence. Like, I don't know what he's getting at there. Either way, traditional, Elon Musk cryptic tweet, whatever. This account, Wall Street Silver, responds, yep, he already has the new CEO picked out. Elon will retire to being chairman of the board and tweeter. Yeah, and that's a decent point. He very well might have he might have already made up his mind before putting out that poll in the first place. I think that's a likely possibility. Then Elon says, no one who wants the job can actually keep Twitter alive. There is no successor. So basically just saying like, oh, just because I failed, no one can succeed. like if I can't do it, then clearly no one can, which is pretty narcissistic, but still, again, pretty typical Elon Musk kind of a thing to say. And then the quartering, who again is this YouTuber who's pretty much a right-wing YouTuber, big culture warrior. He says, Elon, I want to do it and I can keep it alive. Not only that, grow it far beyond what it is now. I have a complex understanding of alt tech, what Twitter needs and what creators need. I also have a dozen years running a marketing agency that represented Fortune 500 companies. So again, we got all these fucking Elon simps coming out of the woodwork to be like, look at my resume. I was a fucking, marketing agent or some shit. And I'm a, serious person. Please pick me to succeed you. So what's your response to that, Zach? I think this is pretty funny.
Bro, the groveling is fucking hysterical because it's like none of you are ever going to get appointed this job. Like, what the fuck do you think this is? This is what's so funny about me. This is how you know that people who are like the capitalists that are like, oh, I'm a hardcore capitalist and I make content about capitalism. It's like, you've never worked a day in your life because you don't know that you're just a fucking worthless peon to these people. And also the fact that they're not going to give it to anybody that they don't know that they can control even more than Elon Musk, right? So they're going to give it to somebody who they've got by the balls, that's going to run it like a fucking psychopath, that's going to look only at the fucking spreadsheets and say X, Y, and Z is the most likely path to ROI. It's going to be somebody with no public recognition. They are going to fucking make this guy the least public facing CEO ever. he's going to be completely bland. It'll be, I mean, he'll be like less known than Tim Cook of Apple. Like he will be like what's the name of the dude that's running Alphabet right now? Exactly. That'll be something like that, right? Where it's like Larry and Sergey are gone from Google. Bye, bye, bye. Like they have all their money. They're not the face of it anymore. Zuck still runs Facebook, but that's never been good for their PR either. So they're going to abandon that. This like idea of the celebrity CEO is so early odds. It's so internet bubble. That I think that we really are seeing that like it costs you now. Like Zuck got grandfathered in. Everybody is like, yeah, that dude's a robot, and we roasted him real good in the social network. So I guess he can stick around, and nobody really cares about him that much. We'll keep roasting him whenever he has Drake on his like fucking imaginative VR platform or whatever. But like outside of that, this idea that you can run a company where your CEO is very public and also very, very disliked, loathed even, not going to happen. So why would they take this equally? Like the fact that the quartering even this is like that, it's just embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for anybody that just subjected themselves to this. But anyway, yeah, that's my analysis. Just pathetic.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. Also, shout out to you, Alex. Thank you so much for the 199. I was conflicted when I voted. Elon is entertaining. It certainly has been entertaining, and like I said, it's been more than just entertaining. It's been such a revealing exposure of Elon Musk's actual abilities, about the farce that is the concept of meritocracy in our capitalist environment and society. Because you'd think, oh, well, the richest man in the world must be the smartest and most advanced man in the world, the most intellectually sophisticated man in the world, right? And let's put him in charge of Twitter. I'm sure nothing could possibly go wrong. Well, everything possible did go wrong, quite literally. And he really showed his ass and embarrassed himself. So I totally agree. It's been entertaining as hell. Also, Alex, I wanted to apologize. Yesterday on our live stream, you sent a super chat, a $10 super chat that I totally forgot to answer, and didn't realize that until after the stream was over. You asked something along the lines of, since I am a filmmaker, will I ever release or reveal any of my films? And I totally forgot to respond to that. So I apologize. The answer is yes, they already are publicly available. If you follow me on Twitter at the handle right here at GavinCMB and click on my link tree, you can have access to all of my short films. I'm an amateur filmmaker, so don't judge me too harshly if they're not perfect. But yeah, they are out there. They're available to watch on YouTube. You can check them all out. And apologies for missing your super chat yesterday. I did not mean to ignore it or skim over it. And I appreciate you asking that question as well. But yeah, thanks for the 199, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost pulled up my favorite of any of Gavin's creative projects, which was our original Milk Mag video advert. Which was just me spitting milk all over Gavin's kitchen. It was glorious. But anyway, I couldn't find it quickly enough. But shout out to you, Alex, and appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, we'll have to find that at some point to share with the people. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah. Oh God, it was a long road to get to where we are now, but it was fun. Anyway, thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate the 199. Also, shout out to you, Audie, the bug catcher. Really appreciate the $10. A few months ago, I learned that my startup CEO was a huge Elon fan. I shouldn't judge someone just for that. 3 months later, I had to quit due to ethical reasons. Yeah. Sorry to hear about that, Audie. Although it is pretty cool. Shout out to you for doing the right thing and stepping away if you thought that it wasn't in line with your personal ethical values and morals and all that stuff. I think that's probably the right thing to do. It's better to feel be able to go to sleep at night, right? So shout out to you, Audie. Really appreciate the $10, and that doesn't necessarily surprise me. Usually people that romanticize or idolize these kind of mega capitalist richest men on earth kind of people, yeah, they're willing to do just about anything and everything to increase their own profit as well.
Well, that's what those things condition you to pursue, right? Like, and it's all about self-rationalization. Like, how do you betray people and exploit people while telling yourself that you're doing it in pursuit of humanity? So a lot of the times that a lot of these guys that are immortalized, and I fell victim to this for a while too. When I was like 18 and broke, I was like, I want to get rich. I don't want to be fucking poor forever. I don't want to fucking do this, right? Then you start realizing it's like, oh, this is like a shady scam school, right? But some people, they don't have that kind of reaction to it. And what it is it's like a, let's take Steve Jobs as an example that everybody knows. This guy was famous for being a fucking asshole. right? He was literally famous for just being really rude and cold, and like people would talk about it like warmly, like, oh, he would berate fat people on the street and tell them that they were fucking killing themselves and all this kind of stuff, and like be it like he just had no filter. What a guy! Like, no, this guy's a fucking lunatic. Like, what are you talking about? Like, go fuck yourself. You're gonna go like up to some random stranger and start berating them for no reason, and then like, and it's also they're like, wow, he was such an interesting guy. All he ate was fucking apples and carrots, and I'm like, yeah, it's because he had undiagnosed mental health problems. Okay, nobody just eats apples and carrots and they're normal. This man was a sociopath. He didn't invent anything. He plagiarized other people's ideas and belittled them into working for him anyway. Like that, and then people talk about him like Walter Isaacson writes this like fucking massive book about how he's like belongs along like Leonardo. It's like, why? You literally wrote a book about how he stole Steve Wozniak's ideas, but it was the master of his marketing. No, it's not. He would just say ridiculous shit like make it circle or make it square or this has to be done with titanium. Like, it's just stupid stuff. I get it done tomorrow or you're all fucking finished. Like, he's just the worst kind of guy. Anyway, all those guys have tried to emulate him, right? Mark Zuckerberg, like the whole idea of being the like crazy, kooky, like out of the box CEO. That's what they all like dream about. And so I imagine that, following that playbook, if it started to breed the guy's success as it must have if he was the CEO of the startup you were working at. And I know from a little bit of experience that everybody at startups like idolizes the like most brutal and wealthiest fucking people in the entirety of tech, right? So that he's probably had some success that way, and so he thinks he's like moving on up the ladder, and that he's going to be the next Elon, and that's going to give him carte blanche to just treat people like shit. So definitely, I think it was the right move to quit.
Absolutely. Shout out to you as always, Adi. We really appreciate your generous super chats. And without further ado, we do have our special guest here in the house. Super excited to welcome back to the Vanguard, Tyrel Ventura, good friend of the show. How you doing, Tyrel?
I'm good. I'm enjoying the winter wonderland that is the holiday season up in here in Minnesota. It's wonderful and cold, and 8, I think, was the last time I looked at. It's about 8 degrees. Yeah, it's a fun, exciting time up here. So lots of time spent indoors. Lots of time reading brilliant articles and researching fascinating things like the government's rejection of the latest round of the JFK documents. Do you like that segue, guys?
Great segue. Always a pro at it. And I guess that's a great way to just dive right in. Obviously, Tyrel, what?
Oh, I just wanted to, before we get into the JFK stuff, I was going to ask Tyrel about his opinion on the Twitter thing, if that's cool. So I did want to know your opinion on that, Tyrel, if you've been paying any attention before we move on to the JFK stuff. What's been your whole read on this Elon Musk takeover of Twitter, and which seemingly is now coming to a close? He put out a poll asking, should I remain CEO of Twitter? I will abide by the results. And pretty resoundingly, with I think 57 to 43%, people said, no, you should step down. So what's been your response to all this? And what do you think about Twitter as a platform and its future?
Well, it's interesting because for all the good that Twitter does, it does a lot of bad. I wasn't under any false pretenses about Elon's kind of takeover of Twitter. Elon Musk is a character, and love him or hate him, there's no way he's going to lord over Twitter without being Elon Musk. So I think the shock and awe that people have, oh my gosh, like, what is he doing? And look at all these accounts he's reactivating and these terrible people that he's letting. Well, there was always a certain cesspool that, that lived and dwelled on Twitter and, and all of that you're not going to get away with. I think that when you look at the Twitter file that was released, I think for anyone paying attention, it was nice to see that a lot of our suspicions about how business was being done over there and their, kind of collaborations with government agencies like the DHS and the FBI and the shadow banning. It was nice to actually see that wasn't just, what we were being told over the years as being complete myth. I mean, we all kind of knew it was there. They even admitted to certain degrees, but it was just interesting to see all these kind of, inner workings and inner conversations. And that was fascinating. So as a journalism piece, I definitely feel it was good journalism. I know that like Taibbi and a lot of people are getting kind of flack for, how you dare working hand in hand with Elon Musk to get this out. And to me, it's kind of like, I do agree with Matt's sentiment on that particular part of, as a journalist, everybody has every person that gives you information, they have a reason that they're doing it, and you can't control that. What you can do as a journalist decide, is this newsworthy or is it not newsworthy? whenever you have somebody say, hey, I want to give you access to this, or I want to be a source for this, and a lot of sources are great, and a lot of sources are Elon Musk.
No.
And I think it's also very, when you see, like, especially mainstream corporate media, bitching and complaining about how he's doing the job for a rich guy, it's kind of like, well, that's Jeff Bezos. I mean, every major news outlet, unless you're independent, truly independent, you're going to be funded by whether it be a amalgamation of corporate control, or an individual rich guy like the Washington Post. I mean, that's just how media is in today's landscape, especially media where you're going to get paid and have a salary and have a 401k and have all these things. As far as Musk, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he's letting his ego kind of dictate what does or does not happen on Twitter. I think we all kind of saw that coming. I've always been a big advocate, and maybe it's a little too, I don't know what you want to call it, esoteric maybe, but I've always been kind of a big thing is that why do we give the power of our free speech to things like Twitter? Like, oh my God, I don't have free speech anymore. They took me down off Twitter. Oh my God, I don't have this. Well, no, you always have free speech. It's where you decide to put your free speech. And that doesn't mean that it isn't a scandal that the FBI has got, like, agents sitting here, following the pages of Twitter, looking to see who they do or do not want on there. That is a scandal. That is worth reporting. It's not shocking, but at the end of the day, I kind of look at it and say, look, your free speech is your right. And when you give the power of your speech over to an app or, a social media thing like Twitter, you're giving your power to them. It's going to be up to them what is or is not allowed onto that platform. I just, and that to me is we have to stop thinking in this kind of very ugly way of thinking that the tools that we use for free speech ultimately is our free speech. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I wanted to put up this tweet from earlier this year from Jack Dorsey, actually, who, of course, was the co-founder and the former CEO of Twitter, who I think got it right on the money here, surprisingly, given his background. But he says that the idea and service is all that matters, and he'll do whatever it takes to protect both. Twitter as a company has always been my sole issue and my biggest regret. It has been owned by Wall Street, and the ad model, taking it back from Wall Street, is the correct first step. And then he later went on to say that in principle, I don't believe anyone should own or run Twitter. It wants to be a public good at a protocol level, not a company. Solving for the problem of it being a company, however, Elon is the singular solution I trust. So that part has not aged well. Clearly, Elon should never have been trusted. And this, again, does not age well. However,
agree. I do agree with the first part of that sentiment. And I think it was Edward Snowden. And then I think Jack, either in that tweet stream or another tweet stream, kind of basically laid out that if we really want to, if you really don't want to see certain types of speech in your feed and things like that, it has to be more user controlled. It shouldn't be coming down from up on high, because that's where you get problems like we saw in the Twitter files. That's where you get government intervention and things of that nature, or a small group of people deciding what is or is not acceptable. What it should be is we have the ability to do it. It should be very user-based, that you yourself can decide what words you don't want to see or who you don't want to see. And those things are in there already. You can mute people, you can block people, things like that. But I think if they make the algorithm more specific to the individual and give the individual more control over what is or is not in their feed, I'm a big supporter of that. Because I think that I think ultimately we don't want the tools of our communication being left up to whether it be a corporate entity, whether it be Elon Musk, whether it be Jack Dorsey, whether it be, or the DHS or the FBI. I think the essence of free speech comes down, it's an individual right, and as well as a right of everyone in this country. And I think that the control over what we see in our social media should really be down to us as individuals. Right. And that'll get rid of a lot of these problems, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that, as someone who has a bit of an anti-capitalist perspective as well, I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Even if someone like Elon Musk or Jack Dorsey, or even if I, gave Tyrel Ventura the keys to Twitter and put you in charge, and you were 100% determined to make this a platform that really embodied the values of free speech and really respected and abided by the First Amendment, It simply isn't going to happen as long as it's a private company that is beholden to advertisers. Why? Because advertisers don't want to put their advertisements next to potentially, hateful or bigoted content. They don't want to put their advertisements next to content that might reflect poorly on their brand. And again, if you're going to run a profit-based private company, you kind of need to be profitable. And that's a value that's directly incongruous with that of a First Amendment or free speech absolutist perspective, one which I do think should be employed on platforms like Twitter. I totally agree with Jack that it should be a public good and not a company. I think that's pretty obvious. And anyone who actually wants to see Twitter or any social media become a real embodiment of First Amendment absolutism or free speech maximalism, they need to learn that it must be divorced from the incentives of a capitalist corporate system.
Oh, and just to piggyback onto that for a second, I think that this is really best illustrated if you look at anything that people in this country inherently consider a right, like a fundamental value. We find that it is incongruous to the capitalist mindset, right? Because it's not about a public service. It's not about a good. It is not about outcomes besides increasing revenue, right? It's not about outcomes for the public good. So you could draw parallels to the public education system. If we privatize that, it would be a disaster. We have privatized our healthcare system in this country, and it's a total disaster. The list goes on and on and on, which is why I just think that the primary problem with Silicon Valley bros and the people who get so steeped into this mindset is that you can come to such a brilliant conclusion like Jack did right here, and then your solution for how to implement that is to hire the richest guy in the world to somehow do something to make a public good for at a protocol level. Like you really missed the boat right there. You're like, oh no, you're about to send it off in the exact opposite, because all you know as a metric to how to judge success is the dollar sign. Like, this guy's accumulated a bunch of wealth, he'll be the perfect guy to sustain this, which is just completely flawed logic. What you should really say, like, and this idea that it would never occur to him to just say, hey, why don't we figure out a way to regulate this as a public good, like we did with the railroads back in the day, or like we did with how we get electricity, right? We could do things like that to make it a public utility if that's what he was interested in. Instead, he auctioned it off for $44 billion and now basically has fuck all of a right to tell them how to run it.
Well, yeah, and I think the public good and the utility aspect is the way to go, even if it's not Twitter, even if it's just another aspect or another version of social media and mass communication on that level. We do, I think, at this point, because we are so dependent on that ability to communicate and that tool that's being used to communicate, as well as the internet itself, both those things should be a public good. The internet should be a public good at this point, because you can't do anything without it. And the fact that we still have private companies essentially dictating how we get our internet, that, taking it from a step back even than Twitter and saying, well, you can't survive today, run a business, be a part of the economy, be a part of society without the internet, without some form of social media. And those things, we have to start looking at that as on a real hard level, especially within Congress and on the legislative level, of saying, okay, what is, what, much like trains, much like electricity back in the day, where is the public good in this? And can we turn this into a utility as opposed to a private entity? I think these are all very good points you guys are bringing up, and conversations that we need to have as a society moving forward. And because and here's the thing, I like the individual aspect and making it that way, making it to where you have more individualistic control over what you see and who you hear in your social media, and make it that individual based thing, because of the simple fact of this, and you alluded to it, even if you put me in charge of Twitter, I might make decisions that you disagree with or that other people might disagree with. And you're never going to get around that, because we all have personal bias. We can't escape it. There's no human being on this earth, no matter how rich, no matter how poor, doesn't have a personal bias for what they want to see, what they want to hear, and what they think is right, what they think is wrong. So you can't give that to a group of people and expect them to make every decision perfectly. You can't give that to an individual and expect them not to let their ego get in the way, which is what we're seeing right now. But this kind of like world is ending, sky is falling, oh my God, Elon Musk is in charge of Twitter. It just shows you the kind of short-minded thinking that we have right now. That rather than like looking at this and saying, all right, let's take a bigger picture and say, why are we giving this particular entity all of our chips when it comes to social media? Why aren't we looking at creating or utilizing and turning at least one part of social media into a public utility that everybody can use, that has a base set of rules of conduct that I think we all can agree to? I think there are. I mean, I look. Not everyone's going to agree with everything, but I think there's always going to be some level of basic like decorum that you would ask for, in a public setting, let alone an online public setting. And just hit those things and make them a public utility, at least one aspect of it, so that way people can still advertise, because I mean the good of Twitter is its real-time ability to report, meaning somebody can see a piece of news happening right away and report on it. Somebody can see someone getting shot by a cop in the back and immediately jump on Twitter and report real time. We didn't have that before, so a lot of those things that were kind of swept under the rug are no longer being swept under the rug. That's the brilliance of Twitter and YouTube and things like that, and of social media in general. The downside of them is that at the same time, you've got a lot of unsavory people out there influencing a lot of people and spreading a lot of bad information, but you can't combat that. You only can combat that with teaching people critical thinking and common sense. That's the only way you ever do that. At the end of the day, there's no group of people or an individual or a billionaire or whoever that's going to, solve that problem, because again, they're all going to have their own kind of perception bias to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I wanted to ask you if we're ready to pivot on to the JFK. I thought it would be unique to have you on, Tyrel, because as I understand it, you've always been a fervent believer that, Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. He was a deranged, crazy person, a communist sympathizer who, one day decided to, in a tragic way, act as a renegade individual from a potential window awning. So I'd love to hear your side of the events in light of this recent information from the government.
It's interesting. I love that, by the way. Yes, I'm a complete believer in the Warren Commission through and through. Why would the government ever lie to us about something like that? We can completely trust the CIA. And if anything, clearly it shows that Oswald did it, had the help of every communist in the world in doing it, along with Fidel Castro, the Russians, probably the Chinese, even though they were more of our partners back then. But anyway, all of them combined, the mob. No, the latest, it's interesting because, again, I think this latest dump of information continues to kick the can down the road. They didn't release all the files. In fact, they kept generally the same files that were kept hidden during the Trump administration were once again kept hidden by the Biden administration. And I think it's true. There's not in the files that are still redacted and hidden, there's not going to be anything in them that necessarily says, in a memo from Alan Dulles to J. Edgar Hoover saying, hey, let's kill Kennedy on November 22nd in a triangulation crossfire. That's not going to exist in any of these documents. But what does exist in these documents, in my belief, and from what I've understood and what I've heard from various people who have really studied this and really looked into this, people like Jefferson Morley, Oliver Stone, people like that who've really taken the time to look at what's available now and what they can kind of assume you're going to see into these secret documents that are still being kept secret, is that you're going to see that Oswald wasn't the lone nut. You're going to see that he did have connections, probably very tangible connections to the CIA, and that he wasn't who they said he was. And once you see that information, then that changes the entire perspective of his role in the assassination and who exactly knew what he was going to do when. And that's the thing I think you keep seeing pushed down the road, because to me it's ridiculous at this point. Everybody who is involved in that assassination is dead. There's no one that can be embarrassed. There's no undercover agent that they're trying to protect who bumped into Oswald on the street, or everyone's dead. There's nothing to keep secret, except unless what is still in there is damaging to an institution. That would be the only reason at this point to keep things secret, is that whatever is in there, researchers can can get those files, compare them with what we know, compare them with other testimony, and really get a better idea of who Lee Harvey Oswald was and who his real associations were with, and what did our agencies or did our agencies not do to protect the president that day, or how they acted afterwards or in the run up to. And I think when anybody with a common sense head can look at what happened in November 22nd, 1963, and see that it was not an angry lone nut who shot JFK in a fit of rage. There's very real evidence that Oswald wasn't even on the 6th floor of the book depository when the shooting took place. And I think you're only going to see more, holes punched in that. And what I think we're seeing now with CIA director after CIA director essentially putting the blocks to this last little chunk illegally, by the way, because there was a law passed, I believe, in 1992 that said all of this had to be made public within 17 years, I believe it was. So they're still acting illegally by not making it public at this point. Judge Tunheim, who reviewed the documents back in 91, 92 to go through and help decide what should be made public right away in that era, has said unequivocally that there's nothing that he's seen in there that shouldn't be made public. There's nothing to protect at this point, except I would assume would be the institutions. And an interesting element of that is the fact that I cannot remember his name, forgive me, but one of the main historians that kind of CNN and MSNBC always go to, he was on and they asked him about this. And he said unequivocally that the only reason that they're being kept secret at this point is no president wants to confront the alphabet agencies. No one wants to disagree with them. No one wants to take them head on. And as long as the alphabet agencies, CIA, FBI, things like that, keep saying, no, these documents need to be held secret, and no president has the guts to say bullshit, make them public, that's a very scary scenario, because then you have to ask yourself, well, who does the president actually answer to?
Yeah, I mean, one of the old Rogan bits that he used to constantly go back to was every time there was a president or somebody that looked like they were nearing close to, inauguration, they would show him a new angle from the Kennedy assassination and just say, any questions? Like, don't fuck with us. And do you want your back brains all over the seat of a convertible? Right. But I mean, I think that has to be what it is, right? People will ask questions about what the fuck else J. Edgar Hoover was up to, what people were up to perhaps following 9/11 or maybe in the months prior to that. Like the cookie will crumble,
Well, it's interesting because, the term conspiracy theory didn't really enter U.S. lexicon until about 1964, 65, when the Warren Commission was made. That's when people suddenly started saying, well, this doesn't smell right. Because none of the answers that the Warren Commission provided were logical, especially at the most key points. I mean, anybody who looks and says the magic bullet, a bullet that can cause 17 different wounds, change direction in midair, hang in midair for about a second and a half, move upward, then downward, then left to right. Anyone who looks at that says, well, that's fucking ridiculous. There's no conceivable way in physics a bullet could ever do that and come out pristine damn near on the other end. All of that evidence is completely ludicrous at this point. So like I said, the only thing that I'm happy they released the documents that they did, because those researchers out there who dedicate, almost every waking hour to pouring through everything that the National Archives has, finding every little bit and crisscrossing them over and tying things together and making those documents make sense when you can kind of step back and look at them all. I'm looking forward to what those girls and gals and guys and gals are going to dig up in the latest tranche of documents, but they're still keeping, I don't know what the number is. I want to say it's like 5,000 or something of them still secret, 3,000 to 5,000 secret. And it's very curious to see, well, what is on there? And, are we just protecting the institution of the CIA? Are we just protecting the FBI? What is in there that you're worried about these people seeing that then could damage the credibility of one of those institutions? Because at this point, everybody who would be involved is dead. So you're not worried about damaging the reputation of a living individual, or are you worried about damaging the reputation of a deceased individual, like a Lyndon Johnson or a Allen Dulles, some of those key figures of that era that when you look at the Kennedy assassination, you unequivocally can see the motives as to why they would kill John Kennedy and why they'd be a part of something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with your point about the term conspiracy theory as it relates to this specific case. By the way, I mean, at this point, I think over 75% of Americans don't believe, or at least are skeptical about the official narrative surrounding JFK's assassination. And yeah, when I hear the term conspiracy theorist, I think of like the flat earthers, or like the people that say, birds aren't real and they're actually all drones that are spying on us, shit like that, which is very obviously ludicrous. But to be skeptical of any US narrative, but especially this one, which, as you said, has so many logical flaws in it, and you'd honestly just have to be a little bit naive to take at face value. I don't think that makes you in any way kooky or even really conspiratorial. It just makes you intelligent to look at a set of facts and come to an obvious conclusion and say, hey, I don't think that, we're being told the full picture here. I don't think that really even makes you a conspiracy theorist. And I was interested as well, Tyrel, because speaking of the term, it came up in this Guardian article that I was reading as it relates to Tucker Carlson, actually, in a recent segment he did. Now, I'm not a huge Tucker Carlson fan. Disagree with a lot of his politics. That goes without saying. But I did think this was interesting. I wanted to play a little bit of his recent segment as well and get your opinion on it. The Guardian says, fast forward to today, and the who killed JFK industry remains in robust health. Hours after Biden released the new files, Tucker Carlson, Fox News conspiracy theorist in chief, began his primetime show by telling his 3 million viewers that the CIA did it. What a crazy conclusion to come to, right? What a lunatic conspiracy theory. Carlson had talked to an unnamed source with direct knowledge of the JFK files the CIA was still hiding. The informed view of the quote-unquote source was that, quote unquote, the CIA was involved in the Kennedy assassination. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake. Lest anyone had any doubts, Carlson emphasized the credibility of the source. This is not a conspiracy theorist we spoke to, not even close, he said. And I'll throw this up and we can take a quick look at the segment in question, just a little 2-minute clip from it so you guys can get the gist. And then I'm interested in your opinion on this one, Tyrel, whether or not you trust Tucker here and think his source is legitimate or not. But without further ado, let's take a quick look here.
We decided to find out. We spoke to someone who had access to these still hidden CIA documents, a person who was deeply familiar with what they contain. We asked this person directly, did the CIA have a hand in the murder of John F. Kennedy, an American president? And here's the reply we received verbatim, quote, the answer is yes. I believe they were involved. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake. It's hard to imagine a more jarring response than that. Again, this is not a, quote, conspiracy theorist that we spoke to, not even close. This is someone with direct knowledge of the information that once again is being withheld from the American public. And the answer we received was unequivocal. Yes, the CIA was involved in the assassination of the president. Now, some people will not be surprised to hear that. They suspected it all along. But no matter how you feel about or what you thought about the Kennedy assassination, pause to consider what this means. It means that within the US government, there are forces wholly beyond democratic control. These forces are more powerful than the elected officials that supposedly oversee them. These forces can affect election outcomes. They can even hide their complicity in the murder of an American president. In other words, they can do pretty much anything they want. They constitute a government within a government, mocking by their very existence the idea of democracy. As cynical as we have become after 30 years of watching government officials ignore the voters who employ them, we were shocked to learn this. It's not acceptable. Americans have trusted their government less with every passing year since the killing of John F. Kennedy. Maybe this is why. And people have known this for a long time. The people who knew would include every director of the CIA since November of 1963. And that list would include Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, one of the most sinister and dishonest figures in American life. That list would also include, we are sad to say, our friend Mike Pompeo.
LOL takes the time to shout out Obama's head of the CIA.
But yeah, I mean, again, no fan of Tucker Carlson. I think a lot of his politics are pretty vile. But I do think that that's an accurate assessment of the situation. And I'm interested in your opinion, Tyrel, on this source. He's not, naming them or revealing their identity in any way. So, for all we know, we just made it up. But what's your take?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, first of all, welcome Tucker to the club. I'm glad it took you this long to get here. You know, a little late to the party, but we'll still let you into the party. But you know, it's interesting as far as the source is concerned. Yeah, until you actually know who his source is, you don't know what that is. You don't know if he put it in there just to back up what he was saying, or if he was totally legitimate, called somebody who did see these files and they gave him this answer. I would assume he's not being illegitimate about it. I would assume that he's, you know, he did talk to somebody who claims to have seen them and told them that. You know, as far what it actually does speak to me is this, and I think it plays to a bigger narrative of the simple fact that when people ask why should we care what happened in 1963, it is now 2023 or about to be. You know, why should we care? Because as you can see, someone like Tucker Carlson, whose belief systems, as you pointed out, are diametrically opposed in many topics and many subjects to the interest that, you know, what we believe in, and the three of us and your listeners, I'd assume, and watchers. What it shows, though, is that even different viewpoints that are that diametrically on the opposite ends of the spectrum can look at what happened that day and say, no, something's wrong with that. Something's inherently wrong with our government if a president can be killed under very conspicuous circumstances, and yet the systems of our government move on as if nothing's happened. And nothing gets nothing gets really investigated. And when challenges to the official narrative come out, well, no, poo-poo, you're a conspiracy theorist. So what it shows is that you can reach across the aisle when it comes to these bigger, more important issues that have to do with the fundamental building blocks of our government and of our society. That if we can lose a president under mysterious circumstances that very well point to our intelligence community and the military industrial complex and things of that nature, that it can actually bring people together that way, even if we disagree on 90% of beliefs in other aspects of government or policy or social beliefs and things like that. And that's what makes the studying of the assassination of JFK so important. That's why that quest for truth and what happened there is so important, because if it comes out, let's say, that the CIA was responsible, either in a major fashion or even in a small fashion, for the assassination of JFK, well, then you have to look at the agency as a whole. And especially when you follow that up with the fact that, you know, you also had them commit MK Ultra. You also had, you know, so many other dubious things done with our money, with taxpayer money. You know, we have to take serious looks at our institutions and say, are they really out for the good of the American people, or are they out for the good of the institution, or some fucked up version of, you know, Pax Americana? You know, I think that's it. You know?
Yeah, I think part of that is the fact that the jury's already out on that, you know, Ty.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the American people, we already fucking collectively, we are like, it's like that weird thing where, like, you know, that suburban mom, you know, she knows that her kid is like snorting coke all the time, but like she just can't let herself like she can't deal with it. She doesn't want to have like a fucking cokehead son, so oh, that's okay, sweetie. Like, no, he never uses, he never does any of that. Like, we raised him in a good Christian home. He would never put that up his nose, right? But like, we all know that the dude's like every time he goes into the bathroom, right? And I think that that's where we're at as a country, right? We all know that the CIA is our coke snorting son, but it would be really painful to acknowledge it. And I actually was just right happenstance looking at Twitter while we were having this discussion, and shout out to Shoe on Head. I like how over the weekend it was basically confirmed the CIA killed JFK, but it was so unsurprising and common sense that we just kind of went, yeah, and moved on. And I think that that's because everybody knows how corrupt our government is. Everybody knows that we do a bunch of illegal shit, you know, that we make the laws and we enforce whatever law, and that law is whatever benefits our government and the aristocracy and all that kind of shit. And of course they've gotten to a president, but once you find out they've gotten to a president, then you might have to start reckoning with the fact that maybe the Bush family was involved in some other shady shit, right? Like, why was George H.W. Bush in Texas on that sunny day? Nothing to say about that. And he becomes president, head of the CIA, all these different things. What was going on in fucking 1999 or 2001? Like, you know, all these kinds of things that we don't want to answer. What's going on right fucking now? right? What are we doing in Africa? What are we doing in all kinds of parts of the world that don't fucking need us there, right? Shadily pursuing our own fucking selfish interests and all kinds of stuff. And it does erode the fact, like we all know, like it's not even a fucking joke that the CIA and the NSA, they're above the power of the presidency. That's why they've been, established that way. And digging into how J. Edgar Hoover was able to, through blackmail and just ruthlessness and being a cold-blooded son of a bitch, was able to literally change the course of the United States government permanently, right? And create what we now refer to as the deep state. Right, the always in power institutions, and just look at the power that they've created for themselves. Look at Edward Snowden can never come home from Russia, right, because he fucking wronged the NSA, right? Julian Assange is fighting for his fucking life in Belmarsh prison because he exposed the wrongdoings of the military industrial complex, right? This is what's happening. And then he also exposed some shady shit about how the CIA and NSA were involved in trying to spy on him, all kinds of stuff, right? It always is coming out. And I feel like there's too much of it for people to ever pretend like, oh yeah, we know the government's not fucking us. It's just the thought of actually dealing with it. Like, I don't think it's going to catch on.
Well, no, and the other thing too is that what I think we're seeing in the last couple of years, and maybe I'm too much of a conspiracy theorist in this mindset for what I'm about to say, but I think also what you're seeing in the last few years is you're also seeing the manipulation of that questioning mindset being driven towards ludicrous things, just to kind of like paint everyone who asks questions of their government in this kind of brush of crazy person. I don't, it's like when you look at QAnon or you look at Pizzagate or you look at some of these other, things that have come up, or the election shit on the Republican side of things. It's like, are elections gerrymandered? Yeah, mostly by Republicans. But what you see happening is you see institutions within our government or prominent figures in our government kind of pushing us towards more of this like ludicrous bent, keeping us away from the things that are very legitimate questions to be asked of the military industrial complex, of the issues that you just brought up that we all know are intrinsically something is wrong there and that has to be stopped. And we need leaders who are courageous enough to stop them. But instead, now we're getting sidetracked on all these like ludicrous, outlandish fucking things that are completely just parlor games that keep us distracted from the actual problem. Nobody, everyone wants to yell about deep state on the right when they don't actually really even have an idea of what that is. Instead they have this like, Trump version of it, which is ridiculous. And so because of that, I think that's where I believe that there's definitely institutional control kind of pushing it in that direction, as opposed to in the direction that it was, let's say, back in the 90s, even, where you had a lot of people questioning JFK, RFK, the assassination of Martin Luther King, what happened with Malcolm X and his assassination and things of that nature. It keeps us away from focusing on the actual conspiracies that powerful people commit, a lot of times right out in broad daylight now.
Yeah.
It keeps us away from focusing on those issues, and instead has a majority of the population who are most affected and hurt by those issues focused on ludicrous shit like QAnon.
Yeah. Are you almost kind of suggesting that the QAnon phenomenon might be slightly inorganic or somewhat of a psyop?
I have no evidence to say that. I watched the documentary on HBO about the folks that supposedly, that look like they were behind it, and purely it looks like because they just wanted people on their 8chan site as opposed to their 4chan site. I mean, I haven't kept up with it since then, but it smelled pretty logical to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets taken and kind of, it's then the people who then take it and start trumpeting it. Right. So whereas like it probably wasn't conceived as something, hey, we're going to start this thing so we get people asking the wrong questions, but you can definitely see how it then gets manipulated and pushed and propagated into a way that kind of distracts people, as opposed to, it distracts people to keep their time and energy focused on something insane rather than something tangible.
Right.
So I like I said, I won't go and say like, oh, QAnon from its beginning and from its gestation was some kind of psyop. But you can definitely see very, very, you can definitely see it being manipulated after the fact. And yeah, keep looking in that direction. which is not, which we've seen before. We've seen COINTELPRO and things like that happen where, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to begin within a government or within an intelligence agency or something like that, but it definitely can be manipulated after the fact.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to end our conversation on this subject by really hammering home the point that this is not some fringe conspiracy theory believed in by a bunch of basement dwelling losers that have nothing better to do than investigate these matters from many years ago. This is something that most people believe in. It's actually a minority position in this country to believe the official narrative of what happened to JFK. And that's pretty stunning given the fact that we live in such divisive times, as you mentioned, Tyrel, with the hyper partisanship and the fact
but
that
what's crazy, Gavin, is that minority position is still the position of almost every elected official.
Yeah,
like that minority, like name me someone on Capitol Hill who's come out and said, I mean, maybe there is, but it's not the bulk. So like, and that's, I think, where the real problem lies, is that we need to start electing people who aren't afraid to take on the CIA and to ask those questions, whether they be about JFK or contemporary things that they're doing, as you said, with how they treated Edward Snowden and and all the points that you guys laid out, or what we're doing in Africa, how we're instigating the Chinese into a war, things like that. And we need more elected officials who are not afraid to take on, reform, and make better these alphabet agencies who have been such a bane. Realistically, I mean, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of good people that work in there. Of course there is, but there's certain intrinsic elements to the FBI, CIA, NSA that have to be reformed and have to be changed if we're going to have any hope of a real democratic future of this country.
Meanwhile,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, meanwhile, the Pentagon failed its 5th fucking audit in a row. So we're doing a great job.
Yeah, exactly. Shit like that. And again, it's like everybody on Capitol Hill just falls into lockstep. No one takes time to say, well, wait a minute, the Pentagon failed their 5th fucking audit for what, like $2.1 trillion? No, more than that. And it's, you're sitting here going like, why is no one raising a red flag about that? Oh, well, is it because of the entrenched power of the military industrial complex and the CIA that they were able to kill a president in 1963 and get away with it? And though no one on Capitol Hill was probably, maybe they were 5 at that time, 8 at that time, but there's still that element of fear there, whether it's talked about or whether it's subconscious. There's still going to be that, we can't take on them. Or in the case of the military industrial complex, we can't take on that because then they'll close down factories in all these different states across the country, and then my district loses jobs. So we need to start electing.
Warren voting for Raytheon.
Right. I mean, I remember when like Raytheon and all them had their big hoorah that like, oh, look, we have all these, female CEOs now, yet, business didn't change. It's no different than the Brittany Griner issue that came up recently with like releasing Victor Bout. Yeah, he's, for all intents and purposes, a nefarious guy. But I put the article up on Die First Then Quit, where we really broke down the fact that the biggest arms dealer in the world is the United States of America. There's nothing Victor Bout could ever dream of doing that would mitigate that would be able to sell enough weapons to match the sales and violence perpetrated by U.S. arms deals. From companies, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, President of the United States, all of it across the line. So I think people really need to start looking at it, really looking back at big picture and not getting caught up in the small debates of our time.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate having you on the show as always, Tyrel. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your perspective on this matter. Is there anything you've been up to recently that you wanted to chat about or shout out or anything like that?
No, just, we're still plugging away on Substack, Live First, Die, Die First, Then Quit. Me and Jesse got a lot of good stuff planned for the new year. A lot of big news going to come up very soon. So, keep tabs on us there. As well, was Jesse's on Cameo now. So if you want your, I have to do the shameless plugs now. It's the end of my segment. But no, if you want Jesse to send you a personal greeting for the Hollywood, check him out on Cameo. But we're still fighting and we're still doing the good work that we need to do. And and as the new year dawns on us, we're gonna buckle down even harder and got a lot of big stuff in the works. I can't wait for everybody to see it. And keep up the good work, YouTube, man. It's always a pleasure watching your shows and watching your commentary. You guys are doing some great work out there, and keep up the good fight.
Hey, man, thank you. Happy holidays, and hope you stay warm up there in Minnesota.
I'll do my best. It's tragic.
Yeah, great to have you on, Tyrel. Love the new lighting, by the way. really
Oh,
makes your background pop a little bit more.
Gotta look hip.
But yeah, man, thanks so much for stopping by. Really appreciate chatting with you about this. Looking forward to doing it again in the near future. We'll see you next time, bro.
Definitely take care of yourselves, guys.
Yeah, take care, man.
See you, Ty. Yeah, I thought that was a great conversation. Tyrel knows so much about the JFK conspiracy. I remember when we were hanging out with him in Minneapolis, we just talked for many, many hours about some of the people he's met. Met like Lee Harvey Oswald's ex-wife, and had a lot of insight gleaned from those conversations. So this guy is an absolute encyclopedia when it comes to the JFK assassination, along with many other conspiracy theories. So really appreciate platforming his perspective and engaging with some of his insights. As always, good friend of the show. Everyone go check out the Jesse and Tyrel Substack. I linked to that in the chat. Good stuff over there, and we appreciate him for stopping by.
Yeah, dude, there's something in the fucking blood of the Ventura family, because that's some of the most gripping storytelling that I've ever heard is from both Ty and his old man. They've really done the deep dive. I'm like sitting there like jaw dropped open, like hearing all of the fucking details about how the like more nefarious elements of our inner government work. And so yeah, if you want more content from those dudes, be sure to check out their Substack, which we put a link to in the chat. But yeah, great fucking show today. Always love talking about the JFK shit. Any excuse to talk about the fact that the deep state whacked a president just because he wouldn't get into Vietnam. Look at what a fucking rabbit hole that was for this fucking country, right? One of the things that Jesse actually said that really fucking stood out to me about the Kennedy assassination was he has a story about asking Fidel about it, and Fidel's like, why would we do that? He was like, if I killed Kennedy, then I'd be stuck with Lyndon Baines Johnson. And it's just like, of course that wouldn't make any sense, because LBJ was way tougher on Cuba than JFK was. But anyway.
Absolutely. And I did want to shout out quickly Christina, who left a nice super chat earlier before Tyrel dropped in. Thank you so much for the $4.99, Christina. Great point, Zach. All of their CEO billionaires are megalomaniacs. They have no interest in making the world a better place. Yeah, absolutely. They're interested with increasing their profit, increasing their bottom line, and that has no correlation to the world being in any way a better place. And in fact, usually quite the opposite.
Absolutely. Shout out to you, Christina. Really appreciate that. And also, I did mean to have a correction. I apparently it was a woman that was the startup boss for Audie the Bug Catcher. So you can girl boss yourself to oblivion too. That women can be psychopaths as well as men, and buy into all of the same bullshit and capitalism. It's why adding more women to the Raytheon board doesn't really necessarily like fucking solve the problem of war, right? But shout out to you, Christina, and shout out to Brittany in the chat. Still breaking my balls about that fucking Chiefs game against the Bengals.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to you, Christina. Thanks so much for the super chat. And we really appreciate you all for tuning in today. Make sure to hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already. And is there anything else you wanted to chat about, Zach?
No, I think we're pretty much rocking and rolling for the day. Might go live tomorrow if some shit goes down. I'm down to. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was a great stream. Nice chilly weather outside, bunker down. Watch some Sopranos and chill for the rest of the day. So unless there was any other news you wanted to get to, we can shout out those lovely fuckers we call the Patreon community.
Yeah, huge shout out to the patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. You can hit up that link in the description, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. If you're interested in supporting the show and keeping us sustainable, we really appreciate the support from you guys, which is why we like to start and end all of our shows with a big shout out to the patron community. Hit up that link in the description. Like I said, if you're interested in supporting the show and keeping us sustainable. And yeah, just a huge shout out. Thank you guys so much for the support.
Peace out.
Peace out. Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.